Hey everybody, Donkey Storm here, and I've been spending a lot of time on the Dragonflight beta learning to play Preservation Evoker, and I want to pass on what I've learned to you guys. So the purpose of this video is to give you everything you need to know if you're just getting started with Preservation and dungeon content and looking to start learning the spec. So in this video, we're going to go over all the abilities and talents, what they do, talk about what buttons you need to be pressing to get going with this spec. It's quite long, so please use the chapters to hop around whatever you're most interested in. Let's get right into it. Preservation is a healer that's unlike anything we've seen before in WoW, in that it's sort of a hybrid between a preventative healer like Restoration Druid and a reactive healer like Holy Priest. Before we get into talents and abilities, it's really important that we go over a couple of the things that are unique to Preservation Evoker and that will really dictate a lot of how we play the spec. So first of all, the big one. Pretty much all of Preservation Evoker's abilities are limited to a 25-yard range, which is about how far I'm standing from this target dummy right now. This is something that we will be constantly trying to work around, both with our talent build and our playstyle. On top of that, many of Preservation Evoker's spells are what are called empowerment spells, meaning you have to hold the ability button down to increase the effectiveness of the spell. Finally, we got Preservation Mastery to consider, which increases the healing you do to targets whose health percentage is lower than yours, meaning you're going to want to prioritize your own health whenever possible. So let's go over your healing kit. We'll talk about what the abilities themselves do first, and then get into how they're altered by talents when we get into the talent section. Before we get into anything else, the first heal we really need to talk about is Echo. So the way Echo works is you cast it on an ally, it heals for a small amount, but more importantly, it leaves this echo buff on the target, meaning that your next healing spell cast on them will replicate itself for 105% of the healing done. Basically, if I cast Echo and then another heal, that heal will heal that target 2 times. So Echo is a huge part of the Evoker kit, and we're going to talk about lots of versatile ways that you can use this spell. The Living Flame is one of our bread and butter healing spells for non-emergency situations. It's just a mana efficient single target heal that doesn't heal for a whole lot. We're going to talent pretty heavily into this though. It's also a single target damage spell if it's cast on an enemy. Reversion is a heal over time spell, pretty similar to Riptide. The only other thing about it is that if it crits, its duration will actually be extended, and again, we're going to talent into this to make it a little bit more unique. Another heal we've got is Emerald Blossom. So although this looks pretty similar to Efflorescence from a Druid, it works in a little bit of a different way. So this is going to make a ground effect, but instead of being a heal over time, after 2 seconds it will heal up to 5 people, depending on the talents you take, that are standing in the effect. So in a 5-man group, this doesn't get a ton of value unless you're sure that your group is going to be stacked, but it looks like this. You cast it, there's a ground effect, and after 2 seconds you can see that it's a burst, it's not a heal over time. Another big one is Rescue, and this is a big one for a couple reasons. First of all, it's a really big single target chunky heal, but even more importantly, this is going to allow you to reposition yourself when you find yourself far away from someone. So when you cast Rescue on someone, you'll fly to them and heal to them like this. As you can imagine, with a healer that's limited to a 25-yard range, you're going to want to use this really sparingly, as it is on a 16-second cooldown. This is going to be a crucial spell for keeping yourself in range of your allies. Let's talk about some of our empowered abilities, starting with Spirit Bloom. So Spirit Bloom is on a 15-second cooldown, and this is a spell you're going to get a lot of use out in 5-man content. The longer you charge this, the more allies it will heal, up to 4. So if I charge this to its maximum length, then it will heal 4 people. But as you can see, that takes quite a while. So if I need to heal fewer people than that, I don't want to waste time empowering the full spell. I can just charge it to my desired length. This is a spell you're going to use a lot in 5-mans. We've also got Dream Breath, which is a big AoE heal that heals in a massive cone in front of us. And the longer we charge this up, the more healing that we do and the less cooldown it goes on. So if we can get this all the way up to the 4th empowerment, it's going to heal for 20k and only have a 10-second cooldown. We'll take a look at what that looks like. Takes quite a while, but there it goes on a really short cooldown. Alright, let's talk about cooldowns, and man, does Evoker have some awesome cooldowns. So one of those would be Rewind. So what Rewind does is that 50% of the damage taken in the last 5 seconds by your group will basically be undone, and in a 5-man setting, this healing's increased by 100%. So if those health bars just drop down, you hit rewind and bam, they just go right back up again. Okay, that healed the training dummies for crazy amounts. So I guess it's kind of bugged with them, but in a typical group, if you have like a big spike of damage, you can hit rewind and it will just shoot the bars way back up to where they were, close to where they were before. So this is on a 3-minute cooldown, but very powerful. Another one is stasis. So what stasis does is you hit stasis, and then the next 3 healing spells that you cast will be saved. So if I do a big spirit bloom, that'll be 1, maybe a rescue, and dream breath. Now you can see my stasis button is lit up. So all the healing that was done there is saved in this buff for about 30 seconds. And over the course of that 30 seconds, if I want to just burst all that healing out a second time, I just hit it and bam, out it goes. So this is a really powerful cooldown. That's great for those pulls where like, oh, a whole bunch of damage went out and I healed it up. And then later on, there's going to be another big damage phase. Then I can hit stasis and replicate all that healing that I did. Stasis is a great time to make use of some echoes. You really just want to pump as much healing into those 3 heals as you can so that when you hit the button again, it's just going to explode with tons of healing. Another big cooldown that evokers have is time dilation. This basically gives someone else a monk stagger, so this is going to be your external defensive for your tank or someone taking a lot of damage. So for the next 10 seconds, 50% of their damage will be spread out rather than happen instantly. So this is on a 1-minute cooldown, so you can really liberally throw this out like pretty much every pull in a 5-man dungeon. I've also got Tip the Scales on a 2-minute cooldown. So basically what this does is you hit this and your next empowered ability will become cast at full empowerment. So rather than have to charge up my Spirit Bloom, now I can just hit it, bam, it's at max empowerment. Okay, so finally we've got Emerald Communion. So what this does is you stand still and you channel. It restores 20% of health and 2% mana every almost 1 second for 4.5 seconds. And then any overhealing done will transfer to others. So you can use this to heal yourself way up if you need to, or you can use this on yourself at full health to heal others. It's sort of like Tranquility, except that it has a lot more to do with your own health pool. And I can confirm, I'm going to show you here, that this does have a longer than 25-yard range. Not by much though, but so since my health bar was full, it was healing the other training dummies as overhealing. Alright, so let's talk about damage abilities, which I think is going to be a place that Evoker is pretty good. For single target, your just kind of spammable ability is Living Flame, and we will have some talents that synergize with this and make it a lot cooler than it sounds. And then as a spender, which will spend some of your essence, we have Disintegrate. Now we will get some free casts of this as well, as you might not want to use your essence on DPS all that much. For AoE, we have a few things. One of them is Azure Strike. This is just your spammable, no cooldown ability that you can cast on the move, as you can see here. You've got Fire Breath, which is an empowered ability, so you hold this down, get as much charge out of it as you can, does a big burst of AoE. And then we can follow that up with Living Flames due to a talent, and you're going to see here when we talk about talents the strength of that. And then finally we've got Deep Breath. So this one's on a 2-minute cooldown. It does quite a bit of damage. It's got a long wind up though, and it does reposition you, so you're going to want to be careful about using it, but it looks awesome. And it's very strong to use on large packs. Alright, so we're going to get into talents here. If you're just looking for some talents to copy, you can just copy these right down. They'll be just fine for 5-man content. And again, I just want to remind you guys that this is not an end-all, be-all, end-game build for the spec. It's really just something to give you a starting point. So take that with a grain of salt as you play and experiment with different talents, see what you like. This worked for me. Alright, so let's go over talents starting with the class tree. We'll just go down each row and talk about what the talents do and why we took them. So Obsidian Scales is a pretty potent defensive ability that we're definitely going to want. And Expunge is our Dispel. We have no choice but to take that. On row 2, we're going to get Rescue, of course, is a big chunky single target heal that repositions us. Permeating Chill is just going to slow anything that we do damage to with blue spells. On the third row, we're going to take Innate Magic for some Essence regen. We're going to take Obsidian Bulwark to reduce the cooldown on our defensive. We're going to take Enkindled for more Living Flame damage and healing. And we're going to take Scarlet Adaptation. So basically what this does is 20% of your healing up to roughly 10k gets stored, and then when you use a Living Flame, it will convert all that into increased damage done. On the next row, we're going to take Quell. This is an important one. This is a ranged kick, so 40-second cooldown, but always nice when we have a kick on our healers. We're going to take Tailwind, which is going to increase our movement speed with Hover. Hover is a super important mobility spell, so we can cast that. We jump up in the air. We can cast while moving now, and we can easily reposition ourselves with that. So we want as many hover talents as we can get. And Carterized Flame is a pretty cool ability that will dispel all kinds of different things, bleeds, poisons, curses, and disease, and will also heal the target for quite a bit when we use it on a 1-minute cooldown. On the next row, we're going to take Suffused with Power, which is just going to give us 4% increased damage. We're going to take Tip the Scales, which we already went over, to instantly cast an empowered ability, and we're going to take Attune to the Dream. Our healing done and received is increased by 4%. On the next row, another Hover ability. Hover lasts for 4 seconds longer. Super good talent there. And Bountiful Bloom, so our Emerald Blossom will heal 2 more people. On the next row, we're going to take Blast Furnace, increase Fire Breath damage by 20%. Real nice AoE talent. We're going to take Grove Tender's Gift, so now that Emerald Blossom is also going to instantly heal you when you cast it. Just nice little benefit of using the spell. Next row, we're going to take Protracted Talons. Azure Strike damages 1 more additional enemy, so we can pretty much spam Azure Strike when we have nothing else to do, so why not hit an additional target? We've got Fly With Me, which is an interesting spell. You basically grab someone and fly to a location. Knowing that we need to keep everybody within 25 yards, this is really nice to have, although you might ruffle some feathers when you're moving people around the battlefield. We're going to take Lush Growth, so all your green spells are basically 10% more effective. Real nice there. On this row, we're going to take Leaping Flames. This one's really cool. So Fire Breath causes your next Living Flame to strike 1 additional target per Empower level. So let's get a quick look at what that looks like here. So you cast Fire Breath, and then a Living Flame right after. And you can see that it's going to bounce all over the place for additional healing and damage. Really cool one there. We're going to take Aerial Mastery, so Hover gains 2 charges. Again, lots of Hover here. Really good for making our way around, trying to stay in range of people. So here down at the end we have Time Spiral. You bend time, allowing you and your allies to cast their major movement ability once in the next 10 seconds, even if it's on cooldown. So if we know we're going to need a big burst of speed, we hit this, and then we can get that. People can use their movement abilities again. And then Zephyr, this is a really big one. So basically it's going to lift everyone up in the air, reduce the damage they take by AoE by 20%, and increase their movement speed for 8 seconds. So big party-wide damage mitigation. Super good spell to use when you know lots of AoEs going out. Alright, so these are the talents I chose in the spec tree for 5-man content. We're going to take Echo, Dream Breath, and Reversion, which we've all already talked about. We're also going to take Rewind, which is an amazing cooldown that we talked about earlier. We're going to take Temporal Compression, so basically when you cast a bronze spell, it's going to make your next empowered spell charge up more quickly. We're going to take Essence Burst. When you cast Living Flame, you got a chance to proc a free Essence ability. We're also going to take the improved version of that, so you can get 2 stacks of it. We're going to take Spirit Bloom, which we already went over what that does. Also Time Dilation. So a lot of these abilities we already talked about come from the talent tree. Emerald Communion as well, our channeled ability. We're going to take Spiritual Clarity. So Spirit Bloom is reduced by 15-second cooldown. That's real nice. We use Spirit Bloom quite a bit. Life Giver's Flame, so Fire Breath will heal an injured ally by 80% of the damage done up to 5 targets. So you can do a big old Fire Breath, and then that's going to put a nice chunky heal on someone. Golden Hour, so Reversion will instantly heal the target for 15% of the damage they took. So if somebody, you know, takes a fair bit of damage, you can put Reversion on them. Some of that will be reversed. On the next row, we're going to be taking Dreamwalker, which is going to allow you to move while channeling Emerald Communion, which is really nice because standing still and channeling for that long can be really dangerous. We're going to be taking Exhilarating Burst. So when you get Essence Burst, your crit healing is increased by 15%. We have a lot of Essence Burst synergies here, so why not take another one? We're going to take Time Lord, which is going to increase our Echo effectiveness by 50%, which is quite a lot. We're going to be taking Life Binds, so when you rescue someone, you're going to be tied to them, and 40% of the healing either of you take will be replicated on the other. Especially nice since usually you're using rescue on somebody that's low health or dropping quickly. Call of Ysera is going to make it so that your next Dream Breath or Living Flame is increased effectiveness after using Rescue. And then Timekeeper Reversion has 2 charges. That's going to synergize nicely with Golden Hour. Next row, we're going to take Sacral Empowerment. So consuming a full temporal compression grants you Essence Burst. So that means when we cast a bronze spell, we use an empowerment. If we use the whole thing, we'll get another Essence Burst. Pretty nice. We're going to take Power Nexus. So we have 6 maximum essence. That means more echoes, more good spells to cast. We're going to take Font of Magic, which just increases our empowered maximum level by 1, so all our empowered spells have a chance to be stronger. We're going to be taking Temporal Artificer. Rewind's cooldown reduced by 60 seconds. That's huge, man. Rewind is so good. Having a full minute off of that is really, really strong. We're moving over here to the right. Timeless Magic. Reversion, Time Dilation, and Echo last 30% longer. Those are all really good things to have increased effectiveness on. And then Stasis, we already went over, which is a really, really strong healing throughput cooldown. And then our last point we're just kind of throwing here in Renewing Breath, which is going to put a little heal over time spell on anybody hit by Dream Breath. Okay, so I'm sure what a lot of people came here for. What is my healing rotation? When do I use these spells? So I'm going to do my best to explain how I've been doing it in 5-man content for really low impact healing situations where there's just maybe a little bit of damage going out and you just want to top people off. I typically are just using Reversion and Living Flame for those situations. We can also cast big fire breaths on packs because we do have that talent that will heal from our fire breath, and also cast a Living Flame following your fire breath to get a big burst of damage and some healing out to start a pull. As more and more damage comes out, you can start moving into things like Emerald Blossom if you think you can get good effectiveness out of it and people are actually going to be inside your circle. Maybe if people are a little bit more loosely stacked, you can move into things like Spirit Bloom to get some healing out, and your Dream Breath would kind of be the next step after that, as that's a bigger channel on a longer cooldown, but it heals for a lot. Also, you would want to start using Echoes at this point when we're at that kind of medium to large damage phase, so that some of these heals are getting replicated on people who are lower than others. And then when we get into the heavy damage phase, we start looking at cooldowns. So you can use your Rewind if you have like a big burst of damage that comes out all at once. You can quickly reverse that. You can also use Stasis, so we should probably talk a little bit about how we can ramp using the Stasis spell. So if you're going to use Stasis, you want to get a lot of value out of it. The best way that you can do that would be doing something like throwing a couple Echoes out, then hitting Stasis and doing some big time healing abilities like maybe a Rescue, followed by a Dream Breath to take advantage of our talent, followed by a Spirit Bloom, and then we'll have all this healing stored in our Stasis, plus the Echo healing that was done, and then when we need it, we can hit that Stasis button again, and boom, all that stuff goes out again for a big burst of healing. Okay, on top of that, we can also use Time Dilation on a tank. Pretty much any time your tank's getting slapped, Time Dilation on a 1-minute cooldown is a really good go-to. So that's kind of a basic look at how I like to use this spec. I would also say that using Rescue on like a single person who's dropping low is really good. Sometimes there's a temptation to use Rescue just because you're out of range of others and you just want to get closer, but that's kind of wasting a big 16-second cooldown that can be used to save someone's life. So you really want to use your hovers and just be very mindful of where your allies are at. So you're not using Rescue just to move around, but also taking advantage of a lot of the healing that it does. So that's my current take on Preservation Evoker and 5-man content. I hope you found this guide helpful and it gets you on your feet with Preservation Evoker. If you feel like maybe I missed something or you have a different take on talents, abilities, things like that, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. We're all still learning the spec. It's very new. If you want to see more Evoker content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to have lots of dungeon gameplay coming up for Preservation, or you can check out my stream Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday at 9 p.m. Pacific, where we stream lots of Preservation and lots of other healers too. Love to see you there. Catch you in the next video.